Well, even though the days of MLB being the perfect Memorial Day companion with all teams in action, games all day, it doesn't mean that we still can't make some money on the card. Those days might be long gone, but let's still find some winners. That's what we're going to look to do here on First Pitch. Dan Alexander here. And joining me to talk some day game baseball and some of the evening games as well, I got Bryan Leonard and Drew Martin with me, two of the best in the biz. Thanks for hanging out with us here, making us a part of your holiday while you're celebrating barbecuing here for Memorial Day. And Bri, we got to get right into it, man. We're a little bit late here out of the bullpen, and we want to get to this game because it's starting in right under 10 minutes. Royals, Twins, and we've only seen big bets coming in on the big home favorite. We're looking at it as high as minus 175 here for Minnesota as they're opposing KC. Are we agreeing with that money, Bri? What say you?
Yes, we are, and I'll give that out early. So we've got Minnesota here as a play, and so if you do like the Minnesota side, grab it. And I play that now because it does start in about 8 minutes, but let's get down to the write-up. The Royals just had their 8-game winning streak snapped last night, and if the line is right in those type of games, we like to fade teams after having a winning streak broken, and that was Kansas City. Alec Marsh takes the mound today for the Royals. He really struggled in his rookie season with a 3-9 record, 5.69 ERA, 1.56 WHIP. He's fared much better this season, going 4-1 with a 2.72 ERA, 107 WHIP. And while we like Marsh, we think he's got a solid future ahead of him. He is pitching over his head this year. If you take a look at his advanced stats, exit velocity, chase percentage, and whiff percentage all show he's been just an average pitcher this year, despite the great results. But because of these traditional stat numbers, he's getting a little bit more credit than he deserves, in my opinion. To his credit, he has fared well against the Orioles. He played the Orioles twice, and the Orioles are very good offense, ranked 6th in WRC+. But his other starts came against the White Sox, the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Mariners, and the Angels, as well as the Tigers. None of those teams are in the top 10 offensively in WRC+. And in our opinion, Joe Ryan's one of the best pitchers in baseball who doesn't get enough credit. He owns a career year.
Looks like we
expected ERA.
We lost our man Bryan Leonard there. All right, Bryan, you're back. You're back.
Okay, bases on balls percent are all elite. All in the 80% and higher percentile. So he's faced the Royals this season in his opener, gave up 1 run in 5 1/3 innings, and only twice all season did he not produce a quality start for the Twins. We've got a pitcher we could fade here against a pitcher we're looking to back, and which is why we're on Minnesota, minus the getting higher number as we speak.
Yeah, and the books knew this game was, starting in just about 5 minutes, so they didn't want you to get the full thoughts there from Bryan Leonard. But we got him back. He's letting you know the Twins is the side that he's looking to back. If you want to play a quick one in the other game that's starting in about 5 minutes, I think the first 5 worth a look towards the over in Toronto and Chicago. 2 pitchers I don't have many good things to say anything about. So who doesn't like a Memorial Day over? So there's the 2 early games for you right out of the way. Drew, let's talk some of these games that are starting around 4:10 this evening. And people definitely want to be tuning in around 4:10 this evening because Drew has got a 4% big pack up over at his page, 3 for 1, some baseball action on a hot 8-2 run is my man Drew Martin. So definitely check that out for him. But let's, Drew, talk about this Cincinnati and St. Louis game because this is kind of 2 teams with similar trajectories, if you want to say 2 teams that are kind of middling. But as of late, finally seeming to trend at least towards the right direction. So, Drew, which of these clubs we think is going to continue maybe that upwards trajectory here in some Memorial Day action?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan, in terms of your setup for this game. I mean, if we remember the Cincinnati Reds in the month of May, they started out like 4-15. It was not looking pretty for the Big Red Machine. Well, they've turned it around here and swept the Dodgers, kind of surprising over the weekend.
Yep.
And now hosting the St. Louis Cardinals, like you talked about, 4:10 Eastern here. Actually, a bunch of games at 4:10 Eastern. And the Cardinals have won 5 straight games. That's the reason this just missed the client card, because I don't like going up against teams on 5-game win streaks. However, this spot play, Dan, this is ugly. for the Cardinals here. The Redbirds just played on Sunday Night Baseball against the Cubs, nationally televised game that was delayed 2.5 hours. So the game got over like after midnight on the East Coast. Now they have to travel to Cincinnati. So it's Sunday Night Baseball fade with travel and a delay for an early start. This is a brutal schedule spot. And they're going up against a nasty lefty in Nick Lodolo, 6'6", former first rounder out of TCU, the former Horned Frog. He's got a sub-3 FIP. When you watch him pitch, I had him circled in my notes as, hey, when he comes back off the IL, look to bet on him. Well, this is his first start back. Now, the Cincinnati Reds overall lay in a price. Last night it was minus 130. Now we're seeing it low water mark on the WagerTalk live odds screen, minus 144. I still like it. I mean, Lance Lynn going for the Cardinals, 37 years old now out of Ole Miss, 3.6 ERA, but he's given up 4 earned runs in 3 of his last 4 starts. So he's not pitching all that well right now. I think Cincinnati, given the schedule spot here, Dan, is worth a small bet. So we'll get on the Big Red Machine, minus the 144 now.
The Big Red Machine laying the spot. Hop below in the comments. Let us know what evening games you're looking here for some Monday action. And Bri, you heard Drew talking there about, kind of a spot fade when you're talking about the Sunday night team traveling. Something that you cashed in on with your clients yesterday was fading a red-hot Phillies team who you could argue kind of got a little bit lucky in the first 2 games against the Rockies. They dropped the Sunday set. And now we've seen a lot of Giants money come in as the Phillies continue this West Coast road trip. And the funny thing is in this one is if you just put up the pitcher stats and records in this one and took away the names, you would probably guess it would be Blake Snell who's boasting Taijuan Walker stats right now through the start of the year. So kind of a question mark of pitching if you're just going by names alone. What do we think about this game, Bri? Is this Phillies slump going to continue here throughout this this start of the series here with the Giants, or is it a bounce back spot potentially? What say you? Because you had a great read on the game yesterday.
Yeah, we did, and it worked out very well for us. I think we got plus 183 on the Rockies yesterday. Yeah, this is similar analysis to what I'm going to use in my next bet, and that's fading Philadelphia. I like to fade teams in that regard who are on a nice winning streak and then get that first loss. And if you watch Blake Snell pitch his last game, he finally looked like Blake Snell until they kept him in the game too long. So I like San Francisco in this matchup, but I kind of like the first 5 innings a little bit better. Taijuan Walker is not a guy I'm looking to back. I'm surprised they put him back in the starting lineup as a starter. I thought they'd use him in the bullpen, but I guess he doesn't have that proven ability there that some of the other guys have had. But Blake Snell really looked like he was starting to come on. If you remember, he signed late. He was one of the 2 last signings before the season started. So really what he's done so far has been his spring training. I think he's about to turn it on. He's a guy, obviously he's won the Cy Young before. So this is a guy who's very good. And I like the San Francisco side here. Philadelphia with the travel from Colorado, as you mentioned, going out to the West Coast. I like Snell here, and the numbers in basically the 125 range, and that's a pretty good number for me.
Yeah, and we want to talk all about the Phillies bats this, the Phillies bats this. Well, in the thin air of Colorado Rocky Park, it wasn't really like offense was a plenty for the Phils as far as the runs were concerned. Drew, interestingly and maybe anecdotally enough, is that Blake Snell has never defeated the Phillies, never recorded a win against my Philadelphia Phillies, with a different ball club now, but I mean, since he returned from, I think it was the left abductor that he came back, pretty ineffective. So it's not like I see giant buy signs when I see Snell, but I also agree with Brian's thoughts that this Phillies team might be heading into a little bit of a slump. How do you see this game shaking out?
Actually, Dan, I kind of like the Phillies. I know the spot, schedule spot does matter. It's just, in leaving the thin air of Colorado, coming down here to a coastal town in San Francisco, it can be a little bit tough on a lineup. But this lineup, Dan, I mean, they crushed lefties, they crushed righties. this is one of the best lineups in baseball, man. So up against Blake Snell, I think he's kind of a tricky handicap. Bryan brought up a lot of good points. I respect Bryan Leonard's opinion as much as anybody in the baseball betting markets. I have this read a little bit different. I'm not a huge Blake Snell guy. I mean, he's got 4 starts. He's 0-3. He's pitched only 15 innings in those 4 starts, and he's given up 9 walks, so he's having trouble with control. And he's given up 22 hits in 15 innings. So he's been smacked around a little bit. Now we're asking him to go up against the Phillies lineup. I thought Bryan brought up a good point there, and this is what I'm going to watch, that his last start, he started to look a little bit better. So if that's the case, then I'm going to change my tune in handicapping and maybe not look to fade Blake Snell going forward. That's why information from other good sports bettors is so key in the sport of baseball. But San Francisco spot-wise isn't great either. I mean, they were just over in New York, now traveling across the country, playing a 2:05 local start. So I kind of think spot-wise, it's a little bit of a wash here. And also point towards the later innings. This Philadelphia Phillies bullpen, if you go by the last month, their bullpen whip, their strikeout to walk ratio has actually been really good, actually top 10 in MLB. So for those reasons, I guess I side on the Phillies side. I don't actively look to go against Bryan Leonard, but hey, we find ourselves in that situation today.
Hey, and that's what the show is all about. You can hop below in the comments. Sounds like a split here on the dais. And also, for what it's worth, Bryan was also saying, hey, maybe look towards cutting this game in half. Both of our experts could be nailing this one. Hop below in the comments, break the tie, and let us know. I know our man Eric D, shout out to the chat, by the way, Titan CT, Paco Healy in the house here, Wisconsin guy. Tyler, we appreciate all of you tuning in here on a holiday. Make sure you hit that like button, and if you're not already, make sure you're subscribed. Shout out Anthony Thornhill as well. But Eric D, he's saying don't fade Philly. This is a great handicap at him. Don't fade Philly. You'll be cursed by the gambling gods. So there you go. More reason than ever. He also says, Drew Martin, thank you, my baseball Jesus. Giants stink. Piss missiles into the water all night long. So pretty sure our man Eric D is having a nice Memorial Day to start it off. Our really gentleman maybe enjoying some cervezas to start off his Memorial Day. We appreciate you guys tuning in here on the program. We know it's a holiday, so picking up your phone, picking up your computer, and joining us, man, best chat in the world. I always love asking the folks, hey, what are your best bets? What are your best plays here tonight? And actually, the latest game on the board is a late night special for our man Tyler. He's taking that plus money while he still can with the Seattle Mariners as they're opposing the Houston Astros. We'll talk that game. We also got the Cubs and Brewers game coming up in Washington at Atlanta. That'll be coming up here in just a few moments. But Bryan Valdez on the mound, Miller opposing him in Seattle, and your dogs, man. You're our dog whisperer here. Tyler's saying that's the look for him. What do you think in this one?
I'm with Tyler on this one. I like Seattle. Miller's been a guy I've been looking to bet on all season long. We usually get some pretty high prices on him, but you're catching him as an underdog here, anywhere from plus 108 to 114 is what I'm seeing on the WagerTalk line sheet right here. Valdez going for Houston, the lefty going against Seattle. And I've talked in the past about Seattle at home because of the backdrop, the eye catcher right out there. It's harder to score runs. And we're looking at a total of 7.5 and leaning a little bit to the under in there. So it will be a pitcher's battle here. But I like Bryce Miller. I think he deserves to be favored here. Houston's played a lot better, much better than they did earlier in the season, but they're still not winning a lot of the games that I expect them to win. So I'm going to be on Seattle tonight. And since the games are going off here, I just wanted to point out that the Baltimore Orioles have put up a big fourth inning and they now lead 7-0 over the Boston Red Sox and what was 2-0 just a few minutes ago. The Baltimore offense is just starting to click again. One of the best, if not the best, offenses in Major League Baseball.
Wow. Yeah, they are absolutely rolling in that one. Jeez. 7-0, just like that. We came on here, start the show, and I was like, oh, I can keep an eye on that game. I blink, and man, that O's wagon heating up there. Hopefully you got on him before we start seeing some market correction maybe here. Drew, what say you on this Seattle game? Kind of interesting to see 7.5 painted in this one. I know you're more of a side guy. Any thoughts on runs coming across in this one, or you think that has a lot to do with Valdez on the mound?
Yeah, it does. I mean, Valdez isn't in good form, in my opinion, right now. I mean, what he went last time out, 5 innings, gave up 10 hits, 3 home runs, and 8 earned runs to the LA Angels. Now he's going to turn around here, go on the road to Seattle, which he's actually already faced this Mariners lineup at the beginning of the month, Dan. On May 4th, he went 5 innings, 5 earned runs, and 9 hits. So they smacked him around a little bit. So I could see Seattle putting up some runs here. I agree with the comment in terms of Seattle as a side. It's just I went with the total. I mean, 7.5, very manageable number here, and it's the only late night game. So the singled out West Coast quote unquote degenerate special, if you will, Dan. I think we go up and over here, man. Should be a lot of tickets written on it. The only game in that time frame. So I actually went Astros in M's up and over the 7 in the hook.
I like it. I like the breakdown. That's Drew Martin. Also with us, Bryan Leonard. Actually have a deal going today, guys, a Memorial Day special that ends at midnight tonight. You can lock in a week of plays and get the second week 50% off. So 2 weeks of plays for just over $10 a day. That's not too bad. These are 2 guys you want to lock in. Check that out. Locked and loaded over at their page. You can check out wt.buzz/deals to see all the deals we got rocking over at WagerTalk.com. Just came across too the Dodgers and the Mets on a short slate here today. You can cross off another game. That one going to be postponed. Other than that, weather looks like we should be pretty good. Washington and Atlanta, a game we'll be talking in Best Bets with Drew Martin. That's one to maybe track, but what I'm looking at, it looks like that game should be free and clear. So weather at least not an issue for the games we're hitting on here. But if you had any tickets in Dodgers and Mets, you can tear them up. Bri, a game that you had slated to chat here about, the chat is already popping off and talking about, is the Cubs and the Brewers. We pushed the Royals and Twins, one of your favorite plays, up in the rotation, but this is another one that you have for clients that you're giving out here live on the show for the folks. And Cubs were plus money. Now we're looking at a pick 'em. You agree with that line move? What do you think, Bri?
Yeah, I do. And it's interesting what was brought up earlier with the games playing last night and the travel situation. The Cubs, obviously, the negative here is they played last night in St. Louis, and they had that 2.5-hour rain delay, and they got to go from St. Louis to Milwaukee, which isn't an overwhelming trip. But Justice Steele takes them on for the Cubs, and he's had a rough go of it in his first 5 starts this year. He comes in with a 5.68 ERA, but his whip's solid, 1.18. His problem is that he's getting hit harder than any time in his young career. His hard hit percentage is at 46.2, while his career numbers is at 36.2. Even an Akron University graduate like myself can tell you that that's 10% higher than his normal numbers in that regard. So he's getting hit a little bit better, which is his 36.2 is slightly better than the league average. So I expect that to regress a little bit. He's got a 9% barrel percentage in 2024 as opposed to just 5.3 in his career. League average is 6.9. I expect that to once again regress here. So we're looking for something out of the past when we're taking a look at him today. I think we'll get back to that. After 2 very good starts to open the season, he has been poor as of late. 15 earned runs in 20.2 innings the last 3 times out. He's a much better pitcher than what we've seen lately, and I think that could play to our advantage. And that's one of the reasons why we saw value on the Cubs overnight. Sent this out overnight, and obviously the Cubs have taken all the money thus far, and it's getting to the point now where it's pretty much most of the value is taken out of it. But still, I think the Cubs are the team to beat here, and a lot of that has to do with going against the Milwaukee starter. Robert Gasser He's been one of the Brewers' top prospects for a couple of years now, but nobody expected him to get off to this type of start. He enters play with a 2.65 ERA, 1.12 WHIP. But if you take a closer look at his advanced stats, those numbers are showing much better results than what he deserves. In 17 innings, he's only been able to strike out 6 batters. You just don't see that in Major League Baseball. His K percentage is in the first percentile in Major League Baseball. His whiff percentage in the 20th percentile. He faced the Cardinals in his debut, a team that was slumping terribly at that point. And since then, he's followed up with starts against the Pirates and the Marlins, 2 of the worst hitting clubs in baseball. To me, the wrong team was favored here, and that was the Cubs. And you're getting it at a pick 'em, which is still showing a little bit of value. Unfortunately, we did lose the plus money here on the Cubs, but that's the only way I can look here. We got a pitcher that has played into some bad luck. We got a pitcher that's played into some good luck. Look for those to come together a little bit here. We'll take the Cubs over the Brewers.
The Cubbies, the side. Hop below in the comments and let us know if you agree with our man, Bryan. Leonard, while you're hanging out down there, make sure you hit that like button. And if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed. If you're watching us here live on X or on Instagram, hit that follow button. We would appreciate it. Drew, Atlanta and Washington. This is a big price for the Braves. We're looking at over $2 billion in some spots. And, even after the nice win yesterday, it was against the Pirates. I have to feel like after learning Acuna, your guy is going to be out for the entire year with an injury. There has to be some like whispers going around that club, maybe a little bit of a hangover. What say you? Because 210, this game is a take the dog or pass kind of play for me. What say you in this Washington game?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. I can almost hear the dogs barking now. Plus 176 high watermark on the Nationals. And I'll tell you this, Washington has been kind of like a little bit of a golden goose for me, Dan. I've hit a couple big plus prices with them throughout this season, and that really helps the bankroll, man. So I kind of have this team circled to look to be betting on, and sure enough, they're up like 7-8 units on the season, even though the record 5 games under. It's one of the better things about betting baseball. Sometimes you don't have to win more than 50% of your bets to make some money, and the Nationals have kind of checked that box to this point. They get Mitchell Parker on the hill with extra rest. His start got pushed back from Sunday to Monday here. So I like that aspect. Plus the Nats just took 2 of 3 from the Seattle Mariners, both as underdogs. Parker has not given up more than 3 earned runs in any start this year. And you brought up Acuna, out of the lineup. That's a big hit for this Braves offense. Now Atlanta, a good team overall. They are deep, but laying this big of a price, it comes down, yes, it's betting teams, but it's more about betting numbers here, guys. So getting them up near plus 180 with a bullpen edge. This Washington Nationals bullpen, a top 10 bullpen over the last month, strikeout to walk ratio. I like Washington here. So yeah, I think the dog's barking in the ATL. Give me the Nationals here, Dan.
Love it. Some dogs barking here on some Memorial Day action. A nice, healthy plus money price. Tyler was also asking, hey, Nats getting that 1.5. Is that worth a potential look? In some spots, we're only looking at minus 115. So if you want, a little bit more insurance, you think maybe they get it done or they maybe lose by a run, either split that up. But at that plus 175, you have to at least sprinkle on that money line. So yes, if you like the 1.5, I don't hate it. But Drew, at that price, baseball betting, you only have to hit a couple of those throughout the quarter, the course of the week, the course of the month, and then you end up profitable. So, you wouldn't want to limit yourself just by going that 1.5, right?
Sure. I mean, they're correlated bets.
Of course.
Yeah, I like to put the plus money in my pocket, though, Dan. However, with being the away team, getting that 1.5, if it's 4-3, Atlanta's up, they're not going to bat in the bottom of the 9th. It's kind of the same reason I don't like laying the 1.5 with the home team. I think that's kind of an overrated bet. It goes, the flip side of it. Plus 1.5 with the road team. I like that aspect. I'm just more the better, hey, to put that 76 cents on top. Is it really helps the bankroll. So that's what put me on the money line here for the Nationals, and it is a client play, part of the 3-for-1.
Ooh, Look at that. A little client play towards the end of the show here for you. More reasons than ever to make sure you're subscribed and you're tuning in live here on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. Bryan, before we shut it down for the day, we did have some folks talking about the team that you nailed yesterday with the Colorado Rockies now facing your Cleveland Guardians, a team that you might just be at their ballpark in a week's time. So any thoughts on this one? I believe earlier in the chat, folks were maybe worried, hey, is Gomer a bit of a wagon here? Lefty pitching against the Cleveland Guardians. Guardians laying the road price. Colorado maybe strutting their stuff yesterday after a win over the Phillies. We're looking at a total of 11 in this one. So runs expected. Any thoughts here as we're shutting it down on this Cleveland and Colorado game?
Yeah, before we get to that, I just want to touch a little bit on this Braves game. First of all,
please do.
The eighth and ninth inning relievers, Minter and Iglesias, haven't pitched in the last 3 games. So they've got their back of the bullpen right there ready to go. Jimenez pitched 11 pitches yesterday. He'll probably still be able to be used today. So they've got the back of the bullpen. But not only is it Marco D'Angelo's favorite system, the inter-player theory here with Acuna being out, they're also bringing back 2 of the guys that were injured. Austin Riley's been out like the last 13 days, even though they haven't put him on the IL. He's back in the lineup today. And Sean Murphy, their starting catcher to start the season, has now made it back. So now they're back with 2 of their starters they haven't had for at least the last 2 weeks. But they're back in the lineup today. So that's something there for that game. But when I take a look at the Cleveland game today, Curry's going against Molina. Colorado did a pitching change. Gomber's no longer there.
This
so
changed.
If you bet Colorado, you can't get Gombert out of this one as Molina takes the mound. Line's about 125 for Cleveland, plus 115 or so coming back on Colorado. If I ever do play Colorado games, even though I did play them yesterday, I like to play them at home. They seem to play a whole lot better at home, and it's something that has happened through the entire franchise. If you go back every year, most of the teams, you'll have certain years where they play better on the road than at home. Colorado's a team that I look to fade most of the time when they go on the road. I like to play on them at home because they're used to the home surroundings, where other teams, like your Phillies, are probably reading, okay, here we go. We're going to get to Colorado, get to face a bad starting rotation, get to play in a stadium that gives up a lot of extra base hits, a lot of good batting average. You'll score a lot of runs. And they start swinging a little bit differently, which also is a concern when they leave Colorado, as was kind of insinuated earlier by both of you gentlemen, when they go to San Francisco. So Cleveland's hitting really well right now. They're playing very well. I watch every Cleveland broadcast. They talked about keeping up with the Royals because the Royals had won 8 in a row, and then last night Cleveland wins their 9th. Now they're going on the road. I'm just a little bit worried. They do have a younger team. A lot of these guys haven't been in this possession of being a team that's being hunted instead of being the hunter. I'm kind of worried about them going to Colorado here, taking it a little bit for granted. Not that familiar with Molina to want to back Colorado here, but it's probably a game that I would probably sit out.
Yeah, the chat not familiar with Molina as well. We're referring to him in the chat as Anthony Vanilla, as we got the question marks with the pitching change there. You talk about a guy that you just don't have data on. We're looking at about just over 16 innings pitched. In those 16 innings, 15 runs, 14 of them were earned. So in a ballpark that plays towards the over, a guy who, again, we don't know much about. Hey, Drew, maybe we see this guy, the pitching change come in. Maybe this sets us up for a first 5 over. Those Colorado bats stay hot. Cleveland comes in against the pitcher who's shown he gives up all kinds of earned runs. Any thoughts here on the pitching change? Any thoughts on this game before we shut things down, Drew?
Yeah, Dan, I don't disagree with the overlook. I mean, his numbers obviously aren't good. I'm not very familiar with him either. But Dan, I agree with what B. Leonard said there in terms of Colorado. I mean, this is multi-year now, probably since '93 when they entered MLB in terms of just a home road dichotomy. I mean, even the years where they were really good, that run to the World Series, it's like, man, if they could play 500 ball on the road, that's good for Colorado. That's good for a lot of teams. But at home, even with a team that Colorado is 18-34, they've almost lost twice as many games as they won, but they're only 2 games under 500 at home. they're 7-21 on the road. So talk about the dichotomy here. I agree with Bryan. Colorado is actually bet on at plus prices at home and fade City on the road. It's just they're up against Cleveland here. Cleveland's a one-way team for me right now. I mean, that's a lot of bat-to-ball talent up and down that lineup. So it's kind of a bet-on team against a situation with the Rockies where I do look to bet on them. So overall, it was a pass for me.
Yeah, and maybe this is one that you do pass and you tune in as the game is starting. And if you see Molina just wide-eyed as he's trotting there out as a starter, maybe that's when you look to hop in. But this could be a game that maybe after you see how things settle in, you maybe look to bet live. But big thanks to our experts here today, taking time out of their holiday to join and hopefully get you guys some winners. Best way you can thank them, hit that like button and check them out over at WagerTalk.com. Ride with them for 7 days. Get an extra 7 for 50% off. Ride with these experts 2 weeks of plays, including their 5% best bet releases for just under $11 a day. Not too shabby of a deal. We talked Twins and Royals. Bryan was looking towards the Twins. That game is in action live. Cubs and Brewers. Cubs was the play for our man Bryan Leonard, a client play at that. Drew Martin was looking at Cincinnati against St. Louis, and Washington, the nice plus price for you here on a Monday against Atlanta. We appreciate you tuning in. And of course, here on Memorial Day, remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice. That's why we're all hanging out, watching some baseball, some barbecue, all of that. Thanks to those heroes who ended up paying that ultimate sacrifice. So just remember that, and to take a moment to pause and think of those and those families and the folks that they lost in the service of this country. Big thanks to our expert. Big thanks to you in the chat. I've been Dan Alexander, and don't worry, we got NBA tip-off coming your way. More reasons than ever to hit that little bell. And if you're watching us on the rewatch, hopefully you're watching before 4 o'clock, because that's pretty much what you got here. If you need some more info on all the sports you love, check out the links in the description below or click the video on your screen right now. Keep getting all that info you need to cash on all the sports you love. Until next time, best of luck and happy Memorial Day, everyone.